Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the Auburn School Buildings Committee meeting for January 9th. I'd like to open with the Pledge of Allegiance. Again.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being recorded and for being televised and stuff. I ask if anybody else is recording. Seeing none? Okay. Next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. No citizens' comments. So next up on the agenda is the OPM report from Skanska. Dale.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
So just an update on the MSBA submission. As you probably remember, last time we met, 60% CD submission that was submitted on time to the MSBA on December 20th. Part of that, if you remember, we always follow up with the cost estimate because it takes longer to do. And I'm happy to report again that we're under budget. We continue going down. If you look at this, the sheets that's attached along with the yellow lines, you can see the construction number. That's the one that we're looking at in the middle. So again, as we go through this process, Fontaine, who's here, is going to talk, again briefly about the overall budget, what they've been doing. So it's good news. So as we go through this, the construction cost keeps going down. We will need a vote later for us to authorize Skanska to go ahead and submit this to the MSBA. So I would recommend we make that vote. The next step with the MSBA is the 90% CDs. And originally they're due on February 25th. We were recommending we push it off a couple days so we get the commissioning information back on the 25th. And we are also recommending we have a meeting on February 25th, which is later here. So right now it is, the official date is February 25th, but we're recommending that we push it off 2 or 3 days. So we have a more complete package. Same scenario, we'll follow up at the next meeting with the cost estimate. And again, that's at 90% construction documents. Any questions on the MSBA stuff? The next one is structural peer review proposals. If you remember, last time we met, we went out, solicited the 6 different structural, this is required by code. Basically what it is, they're going to do a peer review of Lamborghino's structural engineer's design. We went out to 6 firms. We received 3 bids. Also attached is the summary of the bids. This is the one that has the green stripe. We de-scoped them. We feel comfortable. We actually are working with this company now, RSV Associates. So that's another motion we would recommend you make tonight to release RSV Associates for $2,900 to do a review of the structural drawings. And basically it's going to take about 2 weeks from when you receive a purchase order.
Hopefully in the back.
The community informational meetings we have set up for next week on January 15th. Fontaine's going to have their project manager and superintendent at the meetings with us, and this is basically open to the public. We sent individual letters out to all the abutters to let them know that these meetings are being held. On the 15th, we're going to have 3 meetings. We're going to go over to the Life Care Center at 10 o'clock, kind of walk through the plans. I'm sure they'll have questions about fencing and noise and dust and lights and hours of operation, and kind of just give them an update where we're going with the project. We're going to be back here at 5 West Street at noon, and then again at 6 o'clock at night. So we're going to have 3 of them. Again, it's just for the public who wants to come and ask questions, give them an update where we're at. Early site work. If you remember, we talked about there's 3 packages that we move forward with. The early site one is basically all the work out in the field. Pre-qualification packages went out to 8 firms. They're due on the 9th. So when they come back, they're going to go to Fontaine. And what they're going to do is, these are only pre-qualification packages. So they went out to 8 firms, said, okay, we want to make sure that you're qualified to work on this project. A lot of it has to do with actually, safety, existing work. We want to make sure they're not overloaded with other work. So they're going to come back and make sure they're pre-qualified. Lamborghino, which Eric will talk about in a minute, on January 17th. The site work bid packages are 100% complete. So basically, Fontaine will have them all pre-qualified, we'll have the drawings, we're gonna go out on January 20th for pricing. So if they're pre-qualified, they'll receive the package. The schedule right now, we're asking for those proposals back on February 7th. And basically, Fontaine, as a construction manager, what they'll do is kind of go through and de-scope it, make sure they're comparing apples to apples. So say if we receive 6 or 8 of them, they're going to go through all of them, make sure that everyone has all the fencing and everything that's on the drawings. And then what we'll do there is we need approval from this committee, or recommendation for the process. What Fontaine will do is they're going to recommend ABC site vendor. We, Skanska, as well as Lamborghini, will look at it and say, yeah, we agree. And then this committee will send it to you, a few days prior to the meeting, so we'll look at it. But then we need this committee to make a recommendation to go ahead and release this site contractor. And it's my understanding that the town manager will actually look at it and then sign off on the package.
That's correct.
So again, a tentative start date as of now is March 2014. Moving in that direction. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just
Mr. Russell.
one on this communications. Has there been any upfront communications at all? As far, I mean, inquiries as far as people in the immediate vicinity?
Yeah, good point. What we've done on the website, and the superintendent also has received interest on working on the project. That's what we asked about subcontractors, local Auburn residents. So what we're doing, we're compiling a list of all those vendors, send them to Fontaine, so as they go out to bid, make sure these individuals know what's going out. For example, we just recently got one from a plumbing company. So that's, down the road here, so once that goes out to bid, we'll make an effort to make sure they know. It's still a public procurement, but we'll make sure they know it's in the central register and the local paper.
Okay.
Bill, was that your question, or was it more on the abutting
Well,
neighbors
that was
and concerns
part of
about it?
But I would just, if we were getting any negative reaction, any heavy negative reaction.
From the abutters and stuff? I don't believe we, of course, Mary Ellen just walked out of the room, but
No, we haven't.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
it's just being proactive to, say construction's gonna be starting, this is where the gates are gonna be.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
start
anybody-
the discussions.
I think the door's been wide open for anybody that had
Mhm.
any concerns or any questions, all through the process. I know I'm very pleased with the openness.
Okay. So, before we go on to the next item, there's 2 items in there that we need to take votes on. It's the estimate, and then on the structural peer review proposals that were there. So, I mean, basically, on our estimates, you can see that our funding agreement right now with the state is the $44,511,234. And at the moment, I mean, all 3 bids, all 3 estimates that were done, Fontaine's, Skanska's, and Fogarty, who does it for Lamborghini Pagano, are all well under that total figure right now. Anywhere from 42.8 to the 43.1 overall. So I think it's all heading in the right direction. I think as we go out to bid, we'll hopefully see more, and the contingencies and stuff will be able to go smaller. So that's the good news on the estimating side. So on
Looking for a motion to accept this.
yeah, to accept this and to okay it for Skanska to submit it to the state.
Submit to the state.
Right.
I'd like to make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that we authorize Skanska to submit this budget proposal to the state as previously requested to do.
Second.
All right. Any discussions? Questions? All right. All those, do you have something, Bill? Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? It's a vote. All right.
Well, I'd also like to, Mr. Chairman, make a motion to award RSV Associates Consulting Engineers for the fee of $2,900 to do a structural peer review as required.
Second.
Okay. A motion and a second. Any discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It's a vote. All right. Next item on the agenda is the architect's report. Eric from Laro Bocano.
My first item is the site work early bid packages, and I think you heard the dates already from Dale, but I'll just repeat them. We are scheduled in pretty good shape to go out to bid for the site work next Friday, January 17th. That includes all of the site civil work, that's grading and drainage, pavement, curbing, that sort of thing. But it's also the site landscaping, so we'll be receiving pricing on the ad alternate for the multi-purpose synthetic turf field, all of the vegetation, grasses and lawns and trees and that sort of thing as well. So it's the entire site package. And as I said, we're in good shape. We're working hard to get that out. And we're submitting that, we're issuing that along with the entire front end, what they call the front end of the specifications. And that's all the bidding requirements and the general contracting requirements. We've been working with Fontaine to get their special instructions to bidders, so that's being inserted into this section so that we have it at this early stage as well. That kind of goes hand in hand with the status of site permitting. We have good news that last night we passed one of our first hurdles with the issuance of an order of conditions by the Conservation Commission. The hearing was closed, and they graciously agreed to expedite their order of conditions. We received that today. We'll be able to include that order of conditions in the bid documents so that any site contractor who's bidding this will be held accountable for all of the conditions in that order. That order also will need to be recorded with the Registry of Deeds, and it will be a lien on the property until it's the final project is complete and inspected, and then that Conservation Commission will issue a release of that. That will be recorded as well. We are scheduled to go to ZBA on the next week, on the 16th, I believe. And we are asking for relief from 3 items. One is the number of parking spaces. Second is the building height. And the third, the primary one, is the impervious area within a it's next to the wellhead protection zone. You have a town well within 400 feet of the site, and we are, although we're not working in that 400-foot radius, we're adjacent to it. We're in the protection zone, and it's not considered a major issue. We expect that will pass. The planning board, you may remember that we had an earlier presentation to the planning board hearing. We were requested to conduct a peer study review of the traffic study. That was done. The results of that came back and were distributed. We also received Graves Engineering's review comments from the They are acting as the town's peer reviewer for the Planning Board, ZBA, and Conservation Commission. And we also received comments from the Fire Department and Department of Public Works, town engineer. So we had a fair amount of comments. It was a very thorough review. We appreciate everybody's efforts that took part in that. Serves as a good check for us also. We have responded to 99% of the on-site issues, and we feel we are in pretty good shape with that. The planning board did ask that we come back to their 28th meeting January 28th meeting with some graphics, a site plan, and cost information relative to off-site improvements. These would be things along West Street, primarily a left turn lane into the site, and potentially widening the intersection to allow for a second left turn lane on West Street southbound at that intersection, so that traffic could queue up in 2 lanes, and in the mornings when traffic is heavy and queues up quite a ways back here, you could accommodate basically twice as much traffic. So we were asked to come back with that. We have, in order to expedite this, we have asked Niche Engineering under LPA's contract to prepare an additional services feasibility study for that work, for that off-site work, and they have submitted a proposal, and I have some copies.
Well, it was passed out to everybody.
Oh, everybody has that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that, you have that in front of you, and the scope of that work is identified. It basically involves preparing existing conditions documentation along entire West Street and at that Southbridge West intersection. That's not part of the site, so it wasn't picked up in the field survey that was done for this project. It's off-site work. So what they're proposing to do is to do that with available aerial photogrammetry and existing GIS conditions. So they're not going to conduct a field survey. This would just be a feasibility study, and they would use existing available information. But it would be comprehensive enough to conduct the feasibility study. They would come out to the site. They would visit the site to identify any surface features that were different, perform site distance measurements, and then they would prepare conceptual sketches and a cost estimates that would identify the entire scope of work associated with those two major improvements. Again, they would look at broad brush things, but they would look at the entire gamut of impacts and potential costs and impacts both cost-wise and schedule-wise. And that would be, it could be things from grading and drainage to layout to landscaping, permitting impacts. We know that potentially there's Conservation Commission issues there. There would also be permitting through Mass DOT because they actually own that intersection at West Street and Southbridge. There's a state road there. So they would prepare these graphics. They would attend meetings with the. We are scheduling a meeting for next week to meet with town departments and others to kind of hash out the details of this and how this might work to everybody's satisfaction and come up with estimates. And then they would prepare a report that would go into the planning board by the 22nd, which would be in advance of their meeting on the 28th, so that they would have time to review that and respond. Then the traffic study people from Niche Engineering would attend that meeting on the 28th. So you have in front of you the fee proposal. I think the total is $11,100, and I'm not mistaken, the total with our LPA's 10% markup is $12,210.
12,210.
Hang on. Yeah, 12,210, yeah.
Does anybody have any questions relative? So we would be asking for a vote tonight to authorize those additional services.
Mr. Chairman, I see, I've read what we have in front of us and listened to what you said, but has the planning board actually laid on the table some idea of what they want to see, as opposed to waiting until they get a report from us, and then they come out with weaknesses? I mean, what's the window, and what actually is
This is,
the waiting procedure, I guess?
well, we are reacting to what was requested of us by them.
Okay,
There's
But-
two different options.
this is all the things they wanted to have explored, but that they have something in mind. Is I heard people talking about Southbridge Street, and I guess because of the backup in traffic at certain times of the day, is this going all the way back to there? And
The two different pieces, I mean, I think if, the way I recall it from the way they talked about it was the definite desire would be to have the left turn lane into the site from West Street. If we could do that, you know, as a minimum type of thing. And then more on top of that is what would be the impacts to everything to do to increase West Street all the way down to the Southbridge Street intersection.
okay,
And whether, you know, we have enough funding after savings on, you know, when we bid it, or, and then whether there's other funding available either through the state, through the town, you know, however or going back to special town meeting, I don't know. But that's why it was kind of broken out into two different items that it's just looking at this way. I mean,
I guess what I'm wondering is, okay, we go through all of this and a presentation is presented, and then it's, well, we like this, but we don't like that, we like this further. Are we gonna begin to run into some type of time backup?
yes,
Possibly.
possibly.
Okay.
Or
What-
that's why everybody's working pretty quickly to try to stay ahead of it, and that's why we have a pre-meeting with the, you know, with the DPW, the fire department, the police, town manager, building department, everybody.
Well,
next
all the
week.
bases are being touched, there's no question
Yeah.
about that. One final question, Mr. Chairman. What about the backside over here where at one time was talking that a lot of the parents would be bringing their kids on the other side?
Masonic
Is that
Circle?
part of this study too?
No,
No.
That is not. That is work that was, the sidewalks on that side of the site and the connection to Masonic Circle
Yeah.
have always been incorporated in some shape or
Oh,
form
okay.
as part of the project.
Yeah.
And I think the only question is what side of the Masonic Circle they're on. We've currently got them located on the west side where there is an existing sidewalk already. But there was some discussion about possibly relocating those.
well, not all of it, just part of it.
A portion of it to the east side.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a follow-up question. If there is an unfavorable vote by the planning board on the 28th for some reason, do we get into a delay of the start date, or is this something that can be carried out even after the start of construction in March? Does that delay the March start date?
I don't know if necessarily on the 28th, if it's an unfavorable, that it would delay at that point, but certainly by their next meeting, if we didn't have it resolved, we could delay it. I mean, part of this is we're trying to get it to a, you know, point where, you know, it's all town, you know, it's town. We're trying to work on it. We're, you know, trying to, you know, cover the bases, and if it can be conditional. The site itself, it seems to be pretty good. Everything seems to be answered. We're okay. Sidewalks, you know, resolved and stuff, and it's the question of traffic on West Street.
That's really my question. I mean, most of the issues seem to be on West Street or the intersection at Southbridge Street. Would that hold up starting the site construction, or?
I mean, it could. If we don't get planning board approval,
Okay, so
Then-
without approval, we can't start.
yeah, because we're not gonna get building permit and we're
Okay,
not gonna get,
I just
without
wanted to
the-
clarify that.
And at this point, I mean, like it or not, I mean, if we don't start March 1st and it goes on too much further, it's probably delaying the opening of the school for a year, but hopefully we're not at that point. We can work this out and, favorably to everybody's satisfaction, but.
Mr. Chairman, Eric, you mentioned Graves Engineering was the town's engineer that took up. Did he recommend any of these things we're talking about? Left-hand turn into the
I
site?
don't believe that came from Graves. I think that came from,
And about a year ago or more, you had a traffic engineering firm.
correct.
And I think I remember saying at that time, they didn't recommend any changes to West Street.
Well, they didn't. They didn't say they were essential to the project. What they did say was that at some point traffic with increased buildup of the Leicester area, you may see an increase in southbound traffic on West Street to the point where it would warrant adding that second additional left turn lane and queuing space. So they did address it. They didn't
Yeah.
say it was.
Or at a minimum, just retiming the light, sequence and stuff.
So had we
So we
thought it was a little more necessary, we probably could have avoided spending another $11,100 at this point in time.
Well, I think you would, at some point, you would have had to do that design work at some point. So
Right, but
whether you did it back then or did it now, it was
right now, there's no
outside of-
sharp pencil.
It's an offset.
Day one, there's usually a sharp pencil.
Yeah.
We're in the same racket. The other thing, the right-hand turn off of Southbridge Street onto West Street used to have a designated lane. I know I drove it many times. The state, on their improvements, took that away. So people that line up in that lane now, both lanes are heading straight. So the right-hand turn off of Southbridge Street was done away with by the state very recently. Is there any way to get the state involved in that one?
Well, for that, we discussed the possibility of the state participating in the reconfiguration of that. And while in certain instances, the state will step in and reconfigure intersections and rebuild them, what generally needs to happen is to have high incidences of accidents at that location. Currently, where it's just been rebuilt, you don't have that condition here. So unless people started going out and having a lot of accidents there, you wouldn't
So I understand the
expect
state's
that to happen.
interest in moving traffic, get them through town, get them going. That's perhaps what led to them closing off the dedicated right-hand turn lane at West Street.
Just one last question. This company that Graves Engineering, they're hired by the town or the planning board as an independent contractor.
On
It's not part of the money from the school project? Is that taken out of
Yeah,
general fund?
Yeah,
It comes out of our budget.
Comes out of this, of
Yep.
the building contract, okay.
we had to pay, just like the added traffic
Okay.
study, peer review study and stuff.
Wasn't sure if it was gonna be coming through the finance committee.
And it's on the applicant.
Okay,
They hire the independent, but then the applicant pays.
pass it on.
Any further?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, isn't it possible there could be a proviso so that construction is not delayed?
It's
In
possible,
other words,
yes.
Hypothetically, the planning board could say, well, we think we're there, we'll give you a proviso based upon getting your ducks in a row, dotting the i's and crossing the t's. Is that possible?
Yes,
To
and they
get a
said,
building permit?
they said as much, Tuesday night, but that's
And that would allow the building permit process to
Right.
continue?
the preferred today. Wrap up everything, but I mean, obviously, we'll have to
Yeah,
see how far we can get along here, so.
thank you.
I guess the whole thing that would be nice if it could be avoided is, finding exactly what they want and get it done once instead of, okay, we did this, now we want this, and,
Yeah.
this back and forth.
That's right.
And delaying it, because, hey, there's a tight schedule as it is.
You're up, yeah.
Well, I think after the 28th, and if it isn't nailed down a little bit more, your concern is,
Yeah.
so let's give it that one.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I think we're there. I mean, I don't, I don't see it blowing up into a bunch of other things.
Okay.
Can always happen, I mean, but, I mean.
Seen it.
We're trying to get everything together and,
Okay.
work through with everybody, so. Alright. So, before we go on to the next thing on, Eric's agenda item here, if we wanna, so we have this proposal in front for a niche to do this feasibility study. Obviously, we'll need a motion and, action on this and vote to approve it. There is, I mean, we do have, space in the budget to do this. We had a traffic study line item still for further down the line and, some of our contingency stuff, so I mean, there is room.
I don't think we have a choice.
No,
I make a
no,
motion
Jesus.
that we approve the traffic study review.
Okay, for the $12,210. Okay, a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's a vote.
Well, the last thing on my agenda is Kevin Seaman from Seaman Engineering Corporation, our LPA's HVAC and plumbing engineer is present tonight. Kevin's business is in Auburn, and he's also an Auburn resident. And we asked Kevin to attend to discuss the geothermal well system and to explain things a little better than I can, and answer any of your questions relative to that.
Just gonna hand these out.
And before you get started, tonight is just more of an informational, background. I mean, we've asked a lot of questions in the past and stuff, so this is just to ask more questions. We're gonna be going all the way through the full bidding and getting the alternate pricing and stuff down the road with Fontaine when they go out to bid and everything, so it'll be, as the alternate, we'll have the hard numbers at that point. At that time, we'll have a vote on it, so.
The purpose of why I handed this out is I know one of the questions has been with the geothermal system. It contributes about 500,000 BTU heating load to the building, but the peak load in the building is more than that. It's 1.6 million. So the question was, how can it save us 80 to 90% of our fuel use if it only is a third of the heating capacity needed? So basically, to answer that, I think the graphic was probably the best picture. As you'll see in front of you, the first two sheets are basically the same. One shows the building systems with heat pumps operating, which is how it's being designed. The other one shows them off. I gave them both just to kind of say that the actual usage is probably between those two. It's just the model wouldn't give me something that was split 50-50 there. But basically, the 6 gallons per hour of usage, that line is what the heat pump can contribute in LP equivalent. So that's what the geothermal system can contribute in heat. So whenever the blue line is basically below that line, the building doesn't require the LP boilers to run. So this snapshot is January 1st to the 31st. So it's basically when you need the most heat. January and February would be your coldest months typically. except for this past year, where it was December. But, so as you can see, there's obviously a great amount of area under the line. That's where we're coming up with the 80-90% of the heat will be generated by the geothermal system. And then the final chart is just a weather chart. It just shows the temperatures of how the model uses outdoor temperatures to create that data. If you look at the chart, you'll see that there's spikes every day, every school day. That's basically when the building is warming up in the morning. And then there's a sharp decline because the model assumes that all the classrooms are filled with kids and the lights are on and the computers are running, which basically means with such a tight envelope building that it's almost heating itself with all the internal loads. So you see a sharp drop off, whereas on the weekends you see a level out because the building is actually, there's no lights and no people heat it. So now the boilers and the heat pump have to heat it. That's why you see that kind of anomaly. The sudden drop to zero usage is really just a quick point in time when at 3 in the afternoon when the building goes into setback, everything's warm and it's cooling off. So basically it's saying there's no heat needed. I'm cooling down to 60 degrees for my night setback. So that's why the model's showing it at zero. It's a very brief amount of time, but it just kind of occurs that way. So that was to try and answer that question. Still currently, based on the cost estimates and energy costs, it looks like payback is still sitting somewhere 12, 14-year payback for that system. So it is a longer payback than what we'd like to see, and I think part of that is because we have implemented a lot of other energy efficient measures to lessen the amount of LP usage to begin with. So the more things we do to try and save fuel just actually decreases the payback on the geothermal because we lessen the amount of fuel use to begin with. But there is potential. We've met in Eric's office about possibly a grant. Grant money can be sought to pay for, I believe it was $70,000 towards the system that could be investigated further too. That's the committee that elects the alternate.
Mr. Chairman? What type of maintenance on this kind of equipment? When you say 12, 14 years, usually people are replacing their heating
Yeah, well,
systems
and that's a good point because these are the wells have submersible pumps like your drinking well would have. So the submersible pumps, they're on VFD drives, there's one per well and 3 wells. So they have a fairly good life expectancy. They're liquid cooled. They run fairly well. I mean, obviously, like any other pump equipment, you probably program a 15-year life cycle change. Same with the heat pump. So if you actually said in 15, so here you are, 14 years later, there, I paid my payback, now do I have to buy new equipment again? It is a good point, and, granted, you should get more than 15 years out of them. I think the Westboro School is just changing their heat pumps after like 20 years. But important thing to remember too is you're not re-drilling the wells, you're not running all the piping, all the infrastructure's there, so you're buying things that now the payback is years, couple of years, and you've got your money back on the reinvestment. So
Is this something we should be doing?
I think it's a wise thing to do it, just because, we're figuring LP fuel at between $2.50 and $3 a gallon. It could continue going up like fuel oil. Natural gas is great. Probably if we were sitting here and we had natural gas outside, I'd say it's not, because natural gas seems so abundant now. Financially, it wouldn't make sense if we had natural gas on site. We don't. So now, because we have such a high cost fuel, it makes more sense to do it.
Just to refresh my memory, what was the total cost estimate on the system? We threw a number out there somewhere along the line.
The most recent estimate came in at about 450,000. one of the estimates. Things.
Around 480.
480. I mean, we went through the estimate a little bit, we noticed a few items that are probably a little higher than what they should be, but, you know, if you want to play it safe, then just stay with a higher number. We'll know what it's going to be.
Mr. Chairman,
That's the net difference, that's not the, it's taking out all the other equipment and adding all the heat pumps out, or, the ground source heat pump and all that shit, all that stuff, so, it's a net increase, is what what that is.
Well, in fact, I've written that down as a question, and you touched on it. The last report we got, we had a figure in there of about 634,000, and now it's dropped down to about 155. It dropped down by 155,000. So, my question was, okay, what have we seen that wasn't there yesterday that's reduced that numbers? And I don't need any detail on it. I was just curious as to what
Well, I know I think some of the things, the wells are only 1,250 feet deep. Originally, they were planned for 1,500 feet, so every foot is $35 a foot or something, so it comes up to some significant money to save, 600 feet of well drilling into rock. So that was one of the components. The heat pumps were, so there was about a $25,000 savings for the well depth, and then, just some of the, between the estimators and the design, just what we were planning and what they were carrying and things of that nature.
Okay. It's always good to see the number going down, but pretty decent chunk of change.
It is.
Jim?
Yeah, just looking at the figures, so savings-wise, it's just taking the 480 and dividing it by the 14 years, about $35,000 a year savings.
Well,
Is that
if you
reasonable?
divide it straight out, but
I
if
understand.
you look at it with a 5% fuel escalation, right, it kind of magnifies itself over time, so.
Now, that $70,000 in grants, is that feasible, or is that,
My quick look at it was that they had a caveat in there that I think they said the geothermal had to be the primary source of heat, contribute at least, I believe it was 80% in the grant. We did talk to them and, clarified that as far as how they meant that, because, on the coldest, worst day of the year, does it have to be 80% of that, or can it be 80% of the annual? And I think they were definitely open to, annual, however you can get it, I think they want to see the systems go in, but.
now, who's the grant from?
Who was it from?
Is it the state?
It's from the state.
Oh, boy. Wishful thinking.
Hang on.
Kevin,
We make a donation
while
to
we
it.
look into that, do you see any need for a special maintenance program, or it can be handled pretty much by what you would anticipate our maintenance people are capable
Yeah,
of?
I mean, they're basically, the chiller heaters themselves are basically water-cooled air conditioning units, heat pumps, so.
It's not a special,
They're not special. The well system, although it may look intimidating, because when it comes into the building, there's these headers and spin filters, but it's all basically automated. It's just spinning down sand out of the fluid. And it's pretty, Nichols College has three 1,500-foot deep wells. They've had running for, it has to be at least 6-7 years now, I think. I think they're very dry wells, though. They're like in the Sahara Desert there or something. They get like 5 gallons a minute out of a 1,500-foot deep well. So we don't expect that here, based on just the geologs.
so nothing special in the way of manpower is necessary on a daily basis, weekly or monthly?
No, there's no. Everything.
In other words, you could save it here and you could
Right. No, there's no
blow it over here.
filters to change. I mean, the spin down filters backflush themselves and things like that, so.
Do we get extra points from that, from SBC?
No, well, it'd be from, be on the mass chips, but I think it doesn't give us any extra on the chips right now. Doesn't get us to an extra level. We're already getting our 2 extra points from, or 2.5 points from MSBA.
Yeah, we're not relying on the geothermal.
Right. Right.
The 2 questions. One, is there any rebates? And the other question, the conventional system to heating and cooling. So if it's, say, with the grant, it would be, say, $410,000. What would a conventional system for heating and air conditioning be? And then the second one is the first one would be rebate.
Well, the premium upcharge is $450, so this, we have a system designed now without it there, which is a number, the total number is, and then the geothermal was an extra $450. Because they took out we had air-cooled equipment, they took that out, replaced it with chill water-cooled equipment for the chiller heater in. And so that's the difference. The credits have already been taken in that $450.
Maybe you could describe what the areas that are served by the geothermal, because it's not the entire building, just a portion of
The
it.
geothermal.
Well,
For cooling.
For cooling.
For heating, the geothermal feeds into the entire hot water loop for the building to basically lead, gets the lead, the boilers come in to help it when it can't keep up. On the cooling side of things, when it goes through summer mode and it starts to make cooling, it will cool the areas that are full cooled, which is basically the media center, the offices, the cafeteria. So those 3 main areas, it will be air conditioning those, which is the equivalent. It's basically a load match. The heat pump system is about 46 tons. Those 3 areas are 46 tons, so it cools those areas. And then in the wintertime, instead of just heating those areas, it actually heats them, feeds the whole building.
So those areas wouldn't be air conditioning without this system?
No, they are right now. The way this job is scheduled, those areas all have air conditioning right now by air-cooled DX units. Yeah.
Okay, so it's $480,000 on top of what the...
Yes.
Right.
And that would be why it would take so long for the payback?
Right. Yeah, that's it.
There's no issues or concerns with the town water source, the well here. I'm assuming that they're going to be at much different depths.
Yeah, I think the town well is very shallow.
Shallow, I think.
Compared.
They're like 40 feet deep or something.
Okay.
They're very shallow. These are into the bedrock.
so-
And there is conversation, the geo consultant had conversations with them, and they're fine, we're outside their 400-foot
Okay.
buffer.
There is a registration program for the well through Mass DEP, so there would be some additional permitting there, but as Kevin said, there were some early conversations there. They were on board with the wells.
Another fun group to deal with.
Pardon?
Another fun group to deal with.
Part of the job.
My question's going over to Skanska. Have we found out any more about reimbursement? You said that MSBA was on, if we went to the geothermal stuff, that some of that wouldn't be inside their reimbursement anymore?
It's definitely not reimbursable.
Right.
In writing, it's not.
Definitely not,
No,
so.
This is 100% your funds.
So actually, that payback period just went out a little further. In reality, if you take a look at, because we're not getting any kind of, that's 100% town cost, the 480 or whatever that number ends up being.
Actually, there is no payback.
Well,
Yeah, the number was,
I mean, when the hard bids come in, it may come back, the numbers, may come back and surprise us all, but, and drop a lot.
I did have a conference call with MSBA on that, and they really couldn't tell me why they don't. They just said, we haven't, and we've kind of set a precedent, now we're sticking with it. So, But they were somewhat open, because I just kind of tossed some arguments out to them. I was basically, well, why not pay for the heat pumps? Because we would have had to buy something there anyway. So they were open to me putting some thoughts together and sending it to them for consideration. But at this point, it's still
Yeah.
no.
Okay.
Any other ideas, like the pros and cons? It's obviously a lot of money. We have a lot of experience here. What are some of the pros and cons for that?
Well, I mean, the pros mainly are energy savings, obviously, right? We have, we're getting rid of using a lot of propane. In the summertime, although I haven't really factored in the savings, but when it switches to cooling mode, it's much more efficient than the air-cooled equipment because it's starting with groundwater temperatures that are very cold. So we are going to pick up some additional summertime energy savings. Not enough to ship years off of it because I kind of looked at it in a reality sense, knowing how schools run, and you're probably not going to be air conditioning the calf every day of the summer. It's probably more of an intermittent kind of a thing. The offices, yes, but and then it's those components. If they're not there, then you don't have the concern of submersible pumps, which maybe they're more susceptible to a lightning strike than it's the grounding. They lose the pumps. I know that happened in my house, so something like that. But I mean, it is more moving parts, I guess. But you could compare it and say, well, we got rid of rooftops, which had compressors in them, so we got rid of 6 compressors, and now we're gonna have 4 down here. So it's kind of a juggle. There's half dozen want to get out that far.
Any negative aspects of it?
Of the geothermal? The negatives, I think, are more in the actual initial drilling. Like if for some reason they hit something that we didn't know was going to be there when they started drilling. For example, we did a job, we wanted to drill 2 wells, they drilled 1, finally drilled the second one, they hit shiny, oily stuff and stopped and said, well, we're not going to drill that one. So luckily we were okay to run with 1, but I don't know, I don't foresee that here because there's no logs of any other wells in the area that have any issues like that. So,
Okay. Anything else?
Just, when is the decision time on something like this?
That's, I think it's down at, after Fontaine gets all the bids
Okay.
in, and we're at the GMP phase when they're putting all, they'll have everything together and can say that, the base building is this, and
Okay.
these are what the alternates are, and, we'll have 2 of them. We have the geothermal wells and the
Turf.
synthetic turf field.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is a update from Fontaine on some of the activities so far.
How you doing, everybody? I'm Jamie Bloom. I haven't been to one of these meetings yet, so I want to introduce myself. I'm the project manager and things are going. Dale kind of talked about most of the stuff on my agenda. So the updated budget with the 60% documents, it actually came down just a tiny bit. And it's basically the hard costs went up as scope's been defined, but then we also now can take more out of contingency now that scope's defined. So that was good to see. Alternates 1 and 2, we just talked at length about the geothermal, and then they're pricing up. They're starting to reach out to some of the bidders with the turf alternate. And the last update I got from Dave, they were talking the turf number they're hoping will be more along like the 640 range, which is down from like the last number he presented to you guys. Pre-qualification, again, Dale touched on it. We're moving forward with the site guys. The pre-quals are all due to us actually today. And then we'll be finalizing next week, and then hoping to start releasing packages the week of the 20th. And then we're still looking for the first week of March to start. I'm not seeing anything that would impede us from that, besides the building permit issue you guys mentioned a little while ago, but I don't think that'll happen. Positive thinking. Local outreach, January 15th, we have all the meetings scheduled, and that's really just because I haven't heard any complaints yet myself either, but I find it helpful when you come in and tell all your neighbors, hey, we're gonna put a fence here and a gate there, and instead of just showing up one day and all this stuff's in their way, and they didn't think it would look like that. So we're really just trying to be proactive with everybody around and make sure they know what's going on, so there aren't a whole lot of surprises. That's really the high points for me. Does anybody have any questions?
Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is our couple invoices are in here.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we pay invoice number 1207-1312 dated 12/31/13 from Lamro and Pagano in the amount of $301,750.
All right, any discussions, concerns? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So vote.
I'd also, Mr. Chairman, like to make a motion, Skanska, invoice number 1311838-PDS-12007-22 in the amount of $10,014 dated 1/6/14.
Second.
All right, any discussions, questions? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Vote. All right, now since this estimate's being submitted to MSBA tomorrow, and we voted on the approval for it, we need to have the meeting minutes approved and to go in with it, so we're gonna need to take a recess again tonight for a few minutes while we finish up the meeting minutes and then read them and
We recess.
Okay.
5 minutes.
Maybe a little bit more, but okay. A second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, we're in recess.
Didn't we vote $2,000 for something?
No, it's $12,000,
Well, I know
210.
that 12,000, but I had made some note this about,
Oh, structural peer review, yeah.
We're already adjourned.
No, we're not. You have that we approved the company, but not the amount.
Amount?
Yeah, that was it,
I
yeah.
can add this, you can approve the minutes with changes,
Yeah.
Want to take the time to do it? Do it.
or I can make them now.
No, do it now. That's the right way to do it. Do it now.
Those are $2,900.
Yeah, I mean, you already raised assembled, but you got to run home 5 minutes earlier.
I wrote down 2,000.
Green street.
Yeah, the green, yeah,
Green stripe.
this one.
It's 2,900. That's right here, right?
Yeah, it just wasn't a price on it.
Expect any noise from the ZBA?
I think we'll have to go out to recess again for a second here. All right, we're back from recess. The meeting minutes are here. Everybody's reviewed, so
where does the
Entertain a motion?
I make a motion to
29?
approve the minutes of January 9th, 2014.
Second?
Second.
Any questions, concerns? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? They're approved. Next meeting is scheduled right now for the 25th of February, 7 o'clock here. And unless there's any other business, items that people would like to bring up?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those,
I'll second it.
all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.